That cider tap in your local pub can look harmless, but routine drinking of today's cider can mean sugar bombs, concentrate bases, and preservative stacks that mess with your gut over time. So today we're breaking down 7 ciders, including Strongbow and Kopparberg, and then I'll give you 2 that are still made properly. Real apples, traditional methods, no synthetic shortcut logic. And if you want breakdowns like this, simple, direct, and a little uncomfortable, subscribe now and let's get started. Number 7, Stowford Press. This one is a masterclass in branding. The name evokes lush orchards. The vibe screams West Country tradition, apples tumbling from trees, slow presses in stone barns. Marketing paints that picture, time, craft, heritage in every pore. But reality hits different. Built for mass distribution first, ingredient choices scream efficiency. You're not getting a seasonal drink that shifts with the harvest. Tart one autumn, sharper the next. You're buying uniformity, same taste in every pub tap every month across the UK. That's the concentrate base at work. Reconstituted apple juice, far cheaper and dramatically easier to standardise than fresh pressing at scale. What gets lost in that shift to concentrate is texture. Real cider carries subtle tannin grip, a kind of structural dryness that reminds you it started as fruit. Concentrate-led builds tend to smooth that out. They're cleaner, rounder, more predictable, and less alive. That difference is subtle if you're not looking for it. Once you are, it's obvious. Lower cal variants pile on artificial sweeteners like sucralose, which show up in research discussions around gut bacteria changes and altered taste preferences. Even if you skip those, the core pattern holds. This brand prioritizes industrial stability over fruit-forward honesty. Preservatives like potassium sorbate lock in shelf life, vital for nationwide hauls, reinforcing that built-to-last mindset. If you feel bloated, headachy, or strangely wiped after a pint, it's worth checking the build, not just blaming the session. What looks traditional on the tap badge is structurally a highly standardized product designed for scale first and orchard character second. Number 6. Bulmers. This is one of those names steeped in heritage. Family vaults, time-tested recipes, pure UK cider legacy. The label pulls you in with effortless tradition. But the truth cuts sharper. It's no longer just a fermented apple drink. It's engineered as a formulated product, locked for unwavering consistency and sweetness at massive scale. One number that demands a pause, over 23 grams of sugar per pint, roughly 5 teaspoons. That flips it from rare treat to weekly pattern, fast if this becomes your staple. Here's where it gets less romantic and more mechanical. Repeated high sugar intake week after week is associated with poorer metabolic health over time. Not one pint ceiling diabetes, but a default that keeps pressing the same metabolic buttons again and again. Sweetness at this level isn't accidental. It's engineered to broaden appeal. A drier cider narrows the audience. A sweeter one pulls more people in, especially newer drinkers. That commercial logic makes sense, but it also explains why heritage branding doesn't always match what's in the glass anymore. Sulfites in the E220 to E228 range help maintain clarity and stability across nationwide distribution. Some people only notice sensitivity through distinct patterns, flushing, sharp headaches, or breathing discomfort that feels different from standard hangover fog. If Bulmers runs your pub rounds, that sugar-sulfite combination can quietly become your normal. And when an off day hits, it's worth tracing the pattern back. Number 5, Magners. This one's tricky. Sold as premium with that iconic ritual, bottle over ice, sunny pub garden, pure summer ease. The image hooks you every time, mid-week or weekend. That ritual deserves scrutiny. Magners prioritizes shelf stability and global reach, quietly reshaping what actually lands in your glass from orchard to distribution. Ritual is powerful. Ice, condensation, sunshine, they shape perception before the first sip. When the environment does half the work, the formulation doesn't have to. That's how premium positioning survives even when the build underneath is industrial. The sugar figure blindsides most, around 4.5 grams per 100 millilitres, landing in the mid-20s of grams in a full pint. 5+ teaspoons you'd never clock on site alone. And that's not subtle sweetness, it's a proper sugar load in a drink where 2 can disappear quickly without much thought. Make it your casual default and it builds a weekly loop. Spike high, dip low, crave again, repeat. Preservatives stack in again. Sulfites show up as a tool to keep the drink stable through long distribution, and higher sulfite levels are often cited as one reason some people feel rough in a way that doesn't match the amount they drank. If you've ever had a pint count that didn't line up with how wiped you felt the next day, it's worth noticing the pattern rather than assuming it was just the alcohol alone. The next time you reach for it, notice whether the premium image matches the way you actually feel after. Number 4, Strongbow. This is the one that's everywhere. Festivals, pub taps, supermarkets, house parties, work do's. That ubiquity makes it easy to default to. The grab without thinking option that slips into routine. When something is everywhere, you stop evaluating it. Availability becomes endorsement. It feels safe because it's common. That's one of the most effective marketing advantages in the drinks industry. Saturation creates trust without earning it. Strongbow runs on a concentrate base, diluted for unvarying consistency. Drinkers call it out relentlessly. Thin, watery, stripped of real apple depth or honest bite. Sugar sits at around 15 grams per pint. Not outrageous compared to some bottled versions ahead, but that's the stealth element. People rarely stop at one. Multiples stack quickly, and the maths shifts fast across a session. Preservatives repeat the script. Sulfites, such as sodium metabisulfite, help stabilize the drink at scale, and in sensitive people, higher levels are sometimes linked to feeling flushed, headachy, or off earlier than expected. The flavoured versions, like dark fruit, lean on added fruit juices from concentrate, colouring such as black carrot extract, and natural flavourings to simulate depth. It's a formulation designed for bold shelf impact over orchard nuance. And unlike traditional ciders that shift with vintage and orchard conditions, this production is engineered for predictability, so the flavour stays identical from bottle to tap, year after year. If a round ever feels flatter than it should, the label usually explains why. There's also something psychological at play here. Sweetness lowers resistance. When alcohol tastes less like alcohol, your internal pacing shifts. You don't brace, you don't slow, you don't measure. That's not weakness, that's design. Number 3, Rekorderlig. These bottles look premium, sleek glass, vibrant labels. Flavours promise sophistication, wild berries, mango, raspberry, pear. The branding leans into Scandinavian purity, crisp Nordic air in every sip. But what makes this one powerful isn't just the flavour list, it's how little it tastes like alcohol. It drinks like chilled fruit soda. And when alcohol feels like soft drink, your internal pacing shifts. You don't brace, you don't slow down, you don't measure it the same way. That's not accidental, it's formulation doing its job. Now look at the numbers. Around 8 grams of sugar per 100 millilitres. A 500 millilitre bottle landing close to 40 grams, roughly 10 teaspoons. Presented as refreshment. Sweetness at that level doesn't just flavour the drink, it shapes how you consume it. Add alcohol to that profile and the effect compounds. The sweetness masks intensity, the bottle disappears faster than you expect. That's where people talk about sharp dips in energy or feeling heavier the next day, not because it's mysterious, but because the design encourages overreach. There's also the stability layer, sulfites and sorbates used to keep flavour and appearance consistent through long distribution chains. It's built to travel well and taste identical, less orchard, more engineering. Rekorderlig isn't subtle, it's strategic. Ease first, consequences later. Number 2, Kopparberg. This brand owns the sweet fruit cider lane across UK pubs, supermarkets and festivals. A masterclass in marketing hypnosis that reels you in effortlessly. Clean, minimalist bottle, eye-catching pink glow, strawberry and lime vibrancy, positioning it as the safe, crowd-pleasing choice for anything from garden parties to quiet nights in. But crack the numbers. A 500 millilitre bottle delivers around 37.5 grams of sugar, close to 8 teaspoons, essentially a liquid dessert, disguised as light fizz. The fruit impression is largely built through flavourings and colourings rather than generous amounts of real berry or lime. Optics first, instant visual hook, authentic orchard character comes second. Colour plays a role too. Vibrant pinks and reds signal fruit intensity before you taste anything. The brain fills in the rest. It's visual persuasion doing the heavy lifting, not orchard density. The preservative layer is there too. Sulfites in the E220 to E228 range help secure batch-identical stability from production to British shelves, and some people report sensitivity, including headaches or breathing discomfort, after higher sulfite drinks. And Kopparberg is designed to be sweet, stable, and identical. That's great for shipping and profit. It works against you if you're trying to keep sugar intake steady rather than stacking it. Number 1. Somersby. This tops the list because it fuses nearly every flaw of modern industrial cider into one seamless package. Corporate ownership, global distribution demands, concentrate base, additive stacks, sugar loads fit for a dessert shelf. A 500 milliliter bottle lands around 35 grams of sugar, roughly 7 teaspoons. Make that a weekly habit, and it shifts from a one-off slip to a stacking pattern you start to feel in your rhythm. Lower sugar variants lean on artificial sweeteners such as aspartame. Scared of that word or not, it signals the same underlying truth. This isn't simple fermented apples. It's a lab-tuned formula engineered to stay sweet while staying cheap and stable. Sulfites layer in once more for shipping endurance, and in sensitive people, higher levels are sometimes linked to headaches or breathing discomfort that get dismissed as just the booze. Somersby markets crisp, clean refreshment while piling on high sugar, synthetic inputs, heavy preservation, and concentrate-driven uniformity over genuine character. If you cut one cider after this video, make it this one. If you zoom out, the pattern across these brands is the same. Stability over variation, sweetness over structure, uniformity over character. None of that is illegal. None of it is hidden. It's just rarely discussed openly. Highly sweetened, heavily preserved drinks are often examined in research looking at shifts in gut bacteria balance. That doesn't mean one pint wrecks you, but routine exposure becomes part of your broader dietary pattern, and that's where it starts to matter. Cider in the UK began as an agricultural product shaped by harvest, apple variety, and fermentation behaviour. Each batch reflected a season. Variation was expected. Structure came from fruit. Modern mass-market cider follows a different logic. Distribution scale, fixed flavour profiles, year-round consistency. The orchard adapts to logistics. Once you see that shift, it's difficult to ignore it. Now let's flip the lens. Not every cider on UK shelves follows that industrial script. There are still producers who keep it simple, real apples, proper fermentation, minimal interference. No sweetness engineered back in, no formulation doing the heavy lifting, just fruit, yeast, time, and the natural variation that comes with them. Here are 2 ciders that stay closer to what cider was meant to be. First, Dunkertons Organic Dry. This stands as the antidote to sugar bomb ciders. A true dry cider lets fermentation run its course. Most of the sugar converts to alcohol, leaving crisp apple tannin, sharp bite, and none of that syrupy sweetness clinging to the finish. Dry cider isn't trying to impress you with sweetness. It asks you to pay attention instead. You notice acidity. You notice tannin. You notice how the finish clears rather than clings. That's a very different drinking experience from something designed to taste consistent across 12,000 taps. Dunkertons keeps it stripped back. Certified organic apples, traditional pressing, minimal intervention. No concentrate shortcuts, no additive scaffolding propping up flavour. Here's why that changes the experience. First, without heavy residual sugar, it doesn't double as a sweet delivery system, which makes it far easier to avoid that spike and dip pattern that pulls you back for another round. Second, organic sourcing appeals to people who prefer fewer agricultural inputs and clearer provenance compared to mass-produced brands. Drink responsibly, as always. But if you want cider that behaves like cider, not alcoholic dessert, this is a cleaner shift. You notice it immediately in the glass. No sugar blast, just structured, vivid apple character doing the work. Second, Heron Valley Still Dry. This is simplicity done properly. Traditional West Country cider craft, whole apples milled and pressed on site. Fermentation driven by natural yeasts. An ingredient list stripped back without gimmicks or fillers. Still, cider changes how you perceive flavour. Without carbonation pushing sweetness forward, the texture shifts. The apple character feels grounded rather than fizzy. Slower, more deliberate. Less about refreshment buzz and more about actual fruit structure. That's not better for everyone, but it is undeniably different. The quality industrial giants smooth out is seasonal variation. Real fruit means each batch reflects the orchard, sharper after a dry summer, fuller from rain-fed yields. That's not inconsistency, that's authenticity, and it requires confidence. It means accepting that this year might lean brighter or softer than last year. Large industrial brands can't afford that variability. Smaller traditional producers embrace it, and that difference alone tells you what each one values. There's no need for concentrate dilution, added sweeteners, or heavy preservative scaffolding to force shelf-proof uniformity. As a still dry, it keeps residual sugar low. You're not pairing alcohol with lingering sweetness. If you're stepping away from the sweet cycle style of cider, this is the direction that makes sense. It lets the fruit lead, without formulation negotiating on its behalf. Cider gets framed as the lighter option, but much of what dominates UK shelves is engineered for sweetness and stability first. Decide with that in mind. It doesn't have to be sweet to be enjoyable, and it doesn't have to taste identical year-round to qualify as quality. It just has to be honest about what it is. And tell me which cider you've been buying on autopilot. If this changed how you see what's in your fridge, subscribe. We break down the everyday UK staples most people don't question. Cheers.